Hello, this is Dr. Dewar here to share with you my comprehension strategy lesson on inferring. So my lesson is written for fourth grade students. My objective is, given a teacher think aloud within an interactive read aloud, students will use details in the pictures of a narrative wordless picture book to make logical inferences about major story elements, and those being character, setting, and mainly problem and goal. The text used in this lesson is a wordless picture book called Journey. It's a literary picture book about a young girl who uses a magic crayon to escape the boredom and loneliness that she feels at home. With the power of this magic crayon, she travels into a fantasy world in which she encounters conflict with a powerful group and has to use her magic to save a creature and herself. The illustrations in this text are very detailed, using color, perspective, and well-sequenced drawing to tell the story. Some parts of the story are told on a single page, while others are told across 2-page spreads. My lesson starts with explicit description of the strategy. So my explicit description for fourth graders is inferring means making a guess by using text and linked background knowledge. Because this is fourth graders, one of the things I want to emphasize with them is that inferences require background knowledge that's relevant or connected to the text. Whereas before they could come up with any kind of background knowledge and hopefully make some kind of inference, with fourth graders I want to make sure that they focus on specific background knowledge that fits to make their inference. When we make inferences about story elements, we can better understand and remember literary text. So here in my explicit description, I'm emphasizing why it's an important strategy to use to better understand and remember. The next part of my lesson in the development section is modeling, and this is where I'm going to do my first think aloud. So when I see the tall buildings and traffic lights and how close the buildings are to one another, I infer that the setting of the story is a city. So I used the pictures, the buildings, okay, my background knowledge because I've been to cities before and I know what they look like to make my inference that the setting, okay, that's the story element, the setting of the story is a city. For my next think aloud, I'm using these 2 pages, and this is a 2-page spread in the text. I'm looking carefully at this girl, our main character, in each of these pictures, but especially her face and the way she has her head down here in this picture. She's like that when she's sitting on the steps in front of her house, too. I saw that there, too. When I see that, I'm inferring that she's feeling sad or maybe mad. Seeing how her family doesn't even look at her in any of these pictures makes me think that she might be lonely or bored, which seems like it might be the problem in the story. So in this case, I made inferences about my main character, that she's feeling how she's feeling, that she's feeling sad, maybe lonely, okay? And the problem, because not only is she feeling that way and we're learning something about her, but that's also a problem that she's feeling that way. Look at her, she looks just terrible. For the next part of my lesson, the collaborative use section, I state the story element that the inference should be linked to. So the students are responsible for identifying details in the pictures that support an inference about the setting. Okay, so together I'd support them, and we connect this. We make connections from the details to the inference to the story element using our chart, this chart to help us. Okay, so I would start with writing the story element setting, and then together we take a look at the details in the pictures, and the students and I would together write these details down, and then together we draw this inference that she's traveled through a magic door to a new land, and the new land part being the important part, that she's not in the city anymore. Also in this collaborative use section, I state that there's a new problem or goal, asking the students to identify it, okay, and explain why they think that's the problem using relevant details in the text. And on this particular section, the new problem is very, very clear. There's the boat like on the edge of a waterfall, and she's clearly going to fall. And so this isn't one where they have to really stretch too far to make that inference about that problem. It's pretty clear. And then their ideas are recorded in the charts. In the guided practice section, I remind the students, because I'm going to start to release more responsibility to them. So I'm going to remind the students of the 3 parts that they have to be thinking about: the details in the text and the pictures, the inference that they're making, and that it needs to be focused on a story element. Then I would have partners work together to make a prediction, which is one type of inference and usually the easiest type of inference for students to make. So again, I'm scaffolding them in a number of ways. And in addition, I'd also prompt them to use what they've already learned from past pages in the text. Like, what do they already know about the character? What do they already know about the setting and how she's actually handled problems? Because this will help them. And then I draw attention to a small detail for the next example, a small detail in the picture, which is a pointing soldier who looks very angry. And I provide the story element to focus on, which is a problem. And then have partners, without my help, partners make an inference and identify both the details and their background knowledge. So I just tell them that there is, I point to this small detail, but I don't actually say anything about it. I want them to figure out what's important about that detail. And connect that to their background knowledge about powerful figures. And then I'm going to provide only the story element, which is another problem, and have pairs complete the next row in the chart with their inference and details. Finally, for the independent use, students are shown a 2-page spread, and they're asked to complete the graphic organizers with all 3 parts totally on their own. This is the assessment portion of my lesson. And my criteria is that they can make their inference about any story element at all. And the 2-page spread that I choose gives them a lot of options. And it will be acceptable as long as the inference and the details from the text that they state align with that story element. So that's the criteria of my assessment. And that is how my lesson, this part anyway, ends. I do have a closure, but I'm not including that in this presentation. Thank you.